Deadstream is directed and written by Joseph Winter and Vanessa Winter, and I gotta say, this was a hysterical horror comedy movie. Really, this has got a lot in common with Evil Dead. That was sort of the first thing that stood out to me. Was it just has a lot of that same sort of slapsticky stuff that you see in Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, that sort of thing. I gotta say though, generally ghost movies, for whatever reason, kind of scare me more than most other horror offerings, and I'm not sure why. I think it's just sort of that whole idea of you don't know what's out there, right? You don't know what's beyond the sort of the paranormal, supernatural. The first third of this movie does a decently good job, actually, of building a little bit of suspense, a little bit of dread as it kind of works toward kind of a reveal of what's happening here and what the horror entity really is. But overall, this is super well constructed and again, just downright hilarious. So, the whole premise of this movie is a popular YouTube streamer who's trying to redeem himself and his career after doing something, pretty underhanded and gross, I guess would be the word to use, with some people to get views and subscribers and all that kind of stuff on his streams. He's trying to go out there and lock himself in a well-known haunted house in the area in which he lives and survive the night. But he's got kind of the typical YouTube slash streamer personality of just being really jokey and kind of cheesy and trying to use comedy to propel things. And it mostly does work. And I think what's so brilliant about this movie is it so effectively skewers streaming and YouTube personalities, right? And sort of how people will do just about anything to get views. The irony is not lost on me that I'm sharing this review on YouTube. But again, it just works really well and it's funny. And I think one of the funniest parts of this movie is the comments that we get as we're watching the movie. So, anytime somebody's streaming, you start to see the comments kind of rolling in the chat window, and that's sort of a pervasive thing here. And so some of the most horrific things and, supposedly terrifying things that you could think of are happening on the screen. Were this a real stream sort of situation? But then down in the comments, you've got someone saying something like lame, I'm leaving, or whatever you would see in a chat window that's completely random and not connected to what's going on. And that juxtaposition makes it that much funnier to me, and it makes it work that much more effectively because the whole thing is set up as a movie as if it is a live stream. So there's never kind of a break from that streaming experience. It starts with sort of the YouTube streaming video introduction, goes right to preparing to go into the haunted house, to being in the haunted house. So it doesn't ever break character in terms of the bit that it's going for. And it works. I think it really does work well. There are a lot of things that I think were meant to, especially early on, maybe in the first third, kind of transitioning into the second third of the movie, to make you think, that one thing was happening. But as viewers, you start to really see what's going on with one of the characters that kind of shows up unexpectedly, obviously before the protagonist Sean does, which is kind of hilarious in and of itself that he's so aloof and out of touch that he doesn't recognize what's happening when a ghost shows up, and it could be one of his streaming fans, or at least that's what he thinks is going on. So again, that kind of play on expectations, it's sort of funny because the whole thing's really self-aware and it works because of that. There's a decent amount of gore in here, but the thing that I like about it is obviously very reliant on practical effects, right? So there are clearly dummies being used in this. There's clearly kind of rubbery makeup in a lot of places with this, but it makes it that much more funny and it gives it more charm than it otherwise would have had if it had relied on cheap CGI. Clearly, this was sort of a low-budget affair, but I got to say that everybody involved with this did a really good job. The only thing about this movie that I didn't love, and this is kind of a weird nitpicky thing, is the title, like Deadstream. It's just kind of generic and doesn't make it stand out. One of the antagonists in this film, one of the sort of vengeful spirits, the ghost that's, pervasive throughout, is named Mildred. So I kind of thought, Mildred would be a better title because it's kind of corny and cheesy, just like the movie. Not that Deadstream isn't corny and cheesy, but I don't know. That's my only gripe with this. This actually made me laugh, and I popped this into, or not popped it in. It wasn't a Blu-ray. I turned it on via Shudder kind of later in the day yesterday because I'd had a long day with stuff with work. I was just tired. I wanted to watch something that wasn't gonna, use up a whole lot of time before bed. Just a horror movie that I could maybe laugh at. It's like an hour and 27 minutes long, so not overly long. But I was laughing late into the night watching this, especially once you get into the final third of the movie. It becomes really funny. And it becomes ultimately just a pretty good horror comedy, more so than I would have expected. So if you like that sort of thing, if you like movies that sort of skewer streaming culture, it's good to check out. And I will say, having tried to make sort of a found footage shaky cam movie in the past, excuse me, Uwari is featured on this channel, or it has been, when we made it in 2012. It is not an easy thing to do at all. In fact, I think in a lot of ways, making a movie like that is a little more challenging than a standard production, because you really have to be careful and plan how things are framed, because it all has to be shot from the perspective of someone holding a camera, wearing a camera on their head, that sort of stuff. In that regard, I think the winner pairing, in terms of the writer-director duo that we have here, did a great job with this. So totally worth checking out if you have Shudder. Not a perfect movie by any means, but highly entertaining, highly funny consistently throughout. Got some good gore in it. It actually has some decent scares in the early going, but it's totally worth your time. So anyway, if you've seen Deadstream, let me know what you think about it down in the comments below. And as always, thanks so much for watching.